I am a combination stage cultivator. My only desire is to cultivate in obscurity, to ascend to immortality as soon as possible. But today, I was cornered in the main hall of the sect. Leading the group was my junior sister, a golden core cultivator. Tears streamed down her face as she pointed at me, accusing me of roasting her squeaky ferret. A crowd of nascent soul and spirit transformation stage elders and disciples stood beside her, filled with righteous indignation. They demanded I build a cenotaph for the ferret. They even wanted me to wear mourning clothes and keep vigil for 7 days. I looked at them, seriously considering a question. Should I just flatten this sect into the ground with a single slap? Or would it be less trouble to find another place to cultivate? How annoying. I just want to ascend. Why do ants always want to force me to start a massacre? Qingyan sect, conference hall. The atmosphere was solemn and respectful, as it should be. But now, the hall was filled with a woman's crying, sharp, piercing, like a dull knife scraping against my eardrums. Wah! My Schwerer died, such a tragic death. The crying woman was named Lin Miaoyin, the sect master's youngest direct disciple, with an early-stage golden core cultivation. She was decent-looking, just not very bright. She was currently pointing a finger, painted with bright red nail polish, directly in my nose. It's him. It's that good-for-nothing Gu Changqing. He must be jealous of me. He stole my Schwerer and roasted it. She cried hoarsely, as if her own father had died. I stood in the center of the hall, expressionless. My name is Gu Changqing, an unremarkable inner disciple of the Qingyan sect. At least, that's what everyone thinks. I've been in the sect for 500 years, and my cultivation is still stuck at the peak of the foundation establishment stage, making me a well-known joke in the sect. What they don't know is that I reached the combination stage 500 years ago. I came to this small Qingyan sect simply to use it to nourish my Tao body in preparation for my final tribulation. I just want to cultivate quietly and then ascend. But today, that quiet has been broken. All for a ferret, a beast with undeveloped intelligence, only capable of squeaking. I couldn't even be bothered to lift my eyelids. Roast ferret. That stuff is sour and tough. Even dogs wouldn't eat it. In my storage ring, a piece of Chilean jerky, a phoenix leg. Wouldn't that taste better? Would I even look at her pet? Absurd. Ridiculous. Above, sect master Zhao Wuji frowned deeply. He was a spirit transformation stage cultivator, a significant figure in a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. Seeing his most beloved disciple crying her heart out, his expression was naturally unpleasant. Gu Changqing. He spoke, his voice carrying the unique majesty of a spirit transformation cultivator. Is what your junior sister says true? You better confess. I raised my eyelids and glanced at him indifferently. It's not true. My voice was calm, without a trace of emotion, as if stating that the weather was nice today. Lin Miaoyin immediately exploded. You're lying. Someone saw you lurking near my cave yesterday. Who else could it be if not you? An inner disciple standing behind her immediately chimed in. That's right, sect master. This disciple can testify. Yesterday evening, I personally saw Senior Brother Gu wandering around our spirit beast garden. Another deacon stood up. Sect master, this morning I smelled a burnt meat smell outside Gu Changqing's cave dwelling. In an instant, the crowd was stirred. The evidence is overwhelming. How dare you quibble? What a narrow-minded waste. You can't cultivate, so you're jealous of junior sister Lin. You wouldn't even spare a small spirit pet. You're simply crazy. Accusations and insults surged towards me like a tide. I remained expressionless. A burnt smell outside my cave dwelling. That was because I accidentally burned a batch of clear heart pills refined with 9 heavens divine fire when I was making pills. The value of that batch of waste pills could probably buy 10 spirit beast gardens. As for lurking in the spirit beast garden, I was just passing by, taking a look at the ley lines there, finding them somewhat interesting. But was it necessary for me to explain any of this to them? Explain laws and alchemy to a group of cultivators who couldn't even achieve soul departure? It was like playing the lute to a cow. Sect Master Zhao Wuji slammed the armrest of his chair, his voice sinking. Gu Changqing, do you have anything else to say? If you cannot prove your innocence, then you are admitting guilt. I suddenly found it a bit funny. Why should I prove it? My voice was not loud, but it clearly resounded throughout the entire hall. He who asserts must prove. She says I killed her pet. Then, please, let her present evidence of me doing it, instead of making me prove something that never even happened. This was a rule I learned in an interesting small world. I thought it made a lot of sense. My words silenced the entire hall for a moment. Then there was an even greater uproar. Outrageous! What kind of attitude is that? The enforcement hall elder suddenly stood up. He was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, and the wrinkles on his face were all shouting inflexible. How dare you talk back to the sect master and all the elders, and spouting such heresy? Lin Yaoyin was even more furious, trembling as she pointed at me and screamed, "You're feeling guilty. You're the murderer." Sect Master Zhao Wuji's face completely darkened. In his eyes, this foundation establishment waste not only showed no remorse, but also dared to contradict him in public, which was simply outrageous. Very well, a glib-tongued Gu Changqing. He laughed out of extreme anger. Since you refuse to admit it, then we will find the evidence ourselves. His gaze was like lightning as he swept it over the enforcement hall elder. Elder Mo, I order you to immediately take people to Gu Changqing's cave dwelling and conduct a thorough investigation. Yes, sect master. Elder Imo accepted the order, a flash of cruel pleasure in his eyes. Men, capture this arrogant fool who disregards sect rules and escort him to his cave dwelling. 2 enforcement hall disciples pounced on me like wolves and tigers. They were both golden core cultivators, and their aura was fierce. In their eyes, dealing with a foundation establishment, waste like me, was a simple task. I stood on the spot, not moving an inch. Not even the corner of my robe fluttered. The hands extended by the 2 disciples could no longer advance an inch 3 feet away from my body, as if an invisible wall was firmly blocking them from the outside. Their faces flushed red. They exhausted all their spiritual power, but remained unable to move me an inch. Elder Mo frowned, sensing something was amiss. Sect Master Zhao Wuji also narrowed his eyes. He has a protective treasure on his body. He does have some good fortune. He snorted coldly, clearly attributing it to me having stumbled upon some dog's *T luck and obtained a decent defensive artifact. He had no idea that this was just the Tao or a domain that naturally formed around me. Not to mention golden core, even a nascent soul cultivator without my permission wouldn't even think about touching a single hair on my head. Useless trash, get out of the way. Elder Mo roared in anger, personally making a move. His withered palm suddenly shot out, the spiritual power of the late-stage nascent soul realm transforming into a massive eagle claw, bringing with it a sharp whistle that ripped through the air as it grabbed toward the top of my head. This grab was enough to flatten a small mountain. All the disciples in the hall revealed gloating smiles. In their eyes, I was dead meat. Elder Mo's eagle claw came fiercely. Then it stopped 1 foot above my head. Just like the previous 2 disciples, it was blocked by an invisible force, unable to advance even an inch further. Elder Mo's expression instantly changed from ferocious to astonished. He frantically urged his spiritual power, his entire face turning a liver-colored hue. The spiritual power eagle claw trembled violently, making a creaking sound as if it couldn't bear the weight. It was still unable to break through that invisible barrier. The smiles in the hall froze. Everyone stared dumbfounded at this scene. A full-force strike from a late-stage nascent soul expert, being blocked so effortlessly by a foundation establishment disciple. How is this possible? Sect Master Zhao Wuji's pupils constricted sharply, and a solemn expression appeared on his face for the first time. What a powerful protective treasure, he said in a deep voice, still using his limited understanding to explain everything before him. It seems you have many secrets on your person. I finally raised my eyes and looked directly at Elder Mo. Relying on your seniority to bully the young, attacking me. I shook my head, my tone calm. You deserve to be hit. The moment the words fell. Slap. A crisp slap resounded throughout the entire hall. Elder Mo was sent flying horizontally like a kite with a broken string, spinning 720 degrees in the air and crashing heavily into a stone pillar in the hall. The stone pillar shook violently, and spiderweb-like cracks instantly spread out. Elder Mo slid to the ground, half of his face swollen into a fermented bun, teeth mixed with blood, vomited all over the floor. He was completely stunned, his eyes filled with endless fear and disbelief. He hadn't even seen how I had made my move. The entire place was silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone was frozen in place, as if under a petrification spell, their minds blank. A Foundation establishment cultivator, slapping a late-stage nascent soul expert away. Has the world gone mad? Lin Miaoyin was frightened and lost all color, instinctively taking 2 steps back. Sect Master Zhao Wuji shot up from his seat with a wah, and the aura of a transformation god cultivator erupted without reservation, pressing down on me like a mountain collapsing and the sea overturning. You insolent brat! How dare you? He roared, his eyes filled with murderous intent. However, that oppressive force, enough to change the landscape and terrify nascent soul cultivators, fell on me like a gentle spring breeze. I didn't even twitch an eyebrow. I looked at him like looking at a monkey jumping up and down. Still want to go to my cave dwelling? I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it made Zhao Wuji's heart tremble, and he abruptly stopped his actions. He wasn't stupid, slapping a late-stage nascent soul expert away, ignoring the pressure of a transformation god cultivator. This was definitely not something a Foundation establishment cultivator could do. Even relying on treasures, it was too incredible. This Gu Chanqing, there's something wrong. A big problem. But things had come to this point, and as sect master, he was in a dilemma. If he just let it go today, where would the Qingyun sect and Zhao Wuji's face be? He took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the suspicion in his heart. It must be a one-time use forbidden treasure, he told himself. I don't believe he can use it a second time. Thinking of this, a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. Search. Keep searching for me. I want to see what kind of demons and monsters are hidden in your cave dwelling. He decided to use the absolute power of the sect to completely crush this anomaly of mine. In the end, I was still escorted to my cave dwelling. Of course, no one dared to touch me again. A large group of people marched imposingly, but kept a distance of 10 zhang away from me, as if I was carrying a plague. My cave dwelling was on an unnamed peak in the most remote part of the Qingyun sect. The spiritual energy here was thin, deserted, and usually no one cared about it. The entrance of the cave dwelling was overgrown with weeds and looked dilapidated. When Lin Miaoyin saw this scene, the contempt in her eyes deepened. What a waste indeed. Even the place where he lives is so shabby. Under the instructions of Zhao Wuji and Elder Mo, the disciples of the law enforcement hall mustered their courage and rushed into my cave dwelling. There was a chaotic search. Soon, a disciple excitedly ran out holding a tuft of white fur. Sect Master, found it. This is snow ferret fur. Another disciple also ran out holding a pile of ashes. Sect Master, and this is spiritual beast ashes. As soon as Lin Miaoyin saw the tuft of white fur, she immediately pounced on it, crying even more fiercely. Xuya, my Xuya, you died so tragically. She grabbed the tuft of fur, as if grasping some ironclad proof, turned around and stared at me resentfully. Gu Chanqing, the evidence is conclusive. What do you have to say for yourself? Zhao Wuji looked at the tuft of fur and the pile of ashes, his face ashen. In his opinion, this was irrefutable evidence. He turned around, and his majestic gaze swept over everyone. The facts are clear. Gu Chanqing, narrow-minded, jealous of his fellow disciples, and brutally killing spiritual pets. His crimes are heinous. He paused, his voice becoming cold. However, for the sake of the heavens having a virtue of loving life, this sect master can give you a chance to atone for your sins. He looked at me like a high and mighty god, passing judgment on me. You immediately cowed out to junior sister Lynn to apologize. Then, for that snow ferret that died unfortunately, find a geomantically auspicious place in the back mountain and erect a memorial tomb, and engrave your crimes on the tombstone to warn others from following suit. Finally, his voice suddenly rose with an unquestionable command. You must wear mourning clothes and observe filial piety for the snow ferret for 7 days. Repent day and night for your sins. If you can do this, this sect master can abolish your cultivation, expel you from the sect, and spare your life. As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar in the audience. Immediately afterward, everyone revealed a delighted expression. To make a cultivator erect a tomb for an animal, wear mourning clothes, and observe filial piety. This was no longer a punishment. This was the ultimate humiliation, 1,000,000 times more unbearable than death. Lin Miaoyin stopped crying, a cruel and triumphant smile appearing on her face. This was exactly what she wanted to see. She wanted this good-for-nothing to lose all dignity in front of the entire sect, to live a life worse than death. All eyes were focused on me. They were waiting to see me collapse, to see me beg for mercy, to see me despair. I looked at them, looked at that so-called evidence. That clump of white hair was probably secretly planted near my cave by Lin Miaoyin herself. That pile of ash was a group of moths that accidentally flew into the stove when I was boiling water yesterday. I sighed softly. In that sigh, there was no anger, no grievance. Only a hint of weariness and a little bit of patience about to be lost. Are you finished? I asked. My voice remained calm. In their eyes, my calmness was the last act of defiance. Sect leader Zhao Wuji sneered. What? You still want to resist? He took a step forward, the aura of a god transformation realm expert rising again. This time, he held nothing back. The entire nameless peak trembled under his pressure, rocks tumbled, and all vegetation bent low. Gu Changqing, my patience is limited. I'll give you 3 breaths to consider. 1, 2. He raised his hand high, spiritual power gathering, as if a thunderous strike was about to fall the next second. Lin Miaoyin and the other disciples had bloodthirsty excitement on their faces. They anticipated the ugly spectacle of me kneeling and begging for mercy. However, I simply looked at him quietly. Then I raised my head and looked at the sky. The weather was good today. Not a cloud in the sky, the sun shining brightly. Unfortunately, it was about to change. 3. Zhao Wuji roared, his palm about to strike. At that instant, I spoke a single word. Light. The moment the word fell, all the light in the world vanished. The sun, the sky, the clouds. Everything was plunged into utter darkness. So dark that you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. No, it was as if even the concept of hand had been devoured by the darkness. Time and space seemed to lose their meaning at that moment. The entire world was left with only pure, suffocating, eternal darkness. What's happening? My eyes. I can't see. What's going on? Did it get dark? Panic-stricken screams arose, but were quickly swallowed by the boundless darkness and silence. Even Zhao Wuji, a god transformation realm expert, was shocked to discover that his divine sense was compressed within his body, unable to leave even a fraction. He had become blind, a deaf man. In the face of this darkness, his prideful cultivation was like a joke. Unknown fear, like countless icy hands, gripped everyone's hearts, just as they were about to be driven mad by this eternal darkness. My voice echoed in this dead silence. I said, "Let there be light. A light beyond description, a light of creation bloomed from my body." This light instantly tore through the darkness. But this light was not warm. It carried the supreme will of the laws, carrying the majesty to judge all living beings. Everyone, in this light, regained their sight. Then they saw a scene they would never forget, a scene that shattered their souls. I was still standing in place, but I was no longer that ordinary Foundation Establishment Realm disciple. Behind me was a chaotic sea of stars. The sun, moon, and stars floated behind my head, as small as marbles. Chains of profound and incomprehensible laws wound around my body, making a whooshing sound, a sound that seemed to be the sound of the great Tao, striking their fragile souls. My eyes had turned indifferent gold. That gaze carried not a trace of human emotion. It was the gaze of God, the gaze of a creator, the absolute indifference of one who looks down on the rise and fall of epochs and regards all living beings as straw dogs. This is sect leader Zhao Wuji, a dignified God transformation realm expert. His legs went weak, and with a thump, he knelt directly on the ground. His Tao heart had been shattered into pieces the moment this light appeared. Combination, or a tribulation transcendence realm expert. Zhao Wuji knelt on the ground, his body trembling like a sieve. His voice was filled with endless fear and despair. His prideful God transformation realm cultivation was as small as a speck of dust in the face of 1/10,000th of my aura. He finally understood. What protective treasures, what forbidden secret techniques. They were all just his laughable fantasies. What he had provoked was not a genius pretending to be weak, but an ancient dragon coiled up in his own fish pond, basking lazily in the sun. And he, and his Azure Cloud sect, were a bunch of brainless fools who tried to pluck the dragon's whiskers. Say, Senior, spare me. Senior, spare me. Elder Mo was even more miserable. He prostrated himself on the ground, roaring with all his might, kowtowing like he was pounding garlic. The wound on half of his face was insignificant under this level of pressure. What truly broke him was the trembling from the depths of his soul. The instinctual fear of a lower life form when facing a higher life form. As for those disciples, their fate was even worse. The Golden Core and Foundation Establishment disciples had their souls crushed the moment this aura was released. Their eyes lost their luster, and they fell straight down, becoming empty shells without souls. The nascent soul disciples were slightly better, but they were also bleeding from all 7 orifices. Their Tao foundations collapsed, and their cultivation was completely destroyed. The entire nameless peak was deathly silent. Only Zhao Wuji and Elder Emo and a few nascent soul elders remained, desperately gasping for breath. And the instigator of it all, Lin Miaoyin. She was still standing, not because her cultivation was profound, but because I had deliberately allowed it. I let her experience all of this, lucidly and completely. She stared blankly at me, at the sea of stars behind me, constantly being born and extinguished, at the laws of the great Tao entwined around me. Her pitiful comprehension had already been completely blown apart. There was no more fear on her face, because extreme fear turned into numbness. Her mouth was open, saliva drooling from the corner of her mouth, her eyes unfocused like an idiot. She just murmured unconsciously, "Impossible. This is impossible. It's an illusion. It must be an illusion." I slowly walked towards her. My footsteps were very light, but every step felt like it was stepping on the hearts of Zhao Wuji and the others. Thump, thump, thump. It was the beat of the drums of death. I walked to stand in front of Lin Miaoyin. The aura around me had already been withdrawn, but the fear that had been branded into the depths of their souls could never be erased. I lowered my head, looking down at her. In my golden eyes, her dazed and twisted face was reflected. "Lin Miaoyin," I spoke. My voice was still calm, without any indication of joy or anger. "I am curious. Who gave you the audacity to slander me with such clumsy methods?" My voice was like a key, opening the valve of her collapse. "Ah!" Lin Miaoyin suddenly let out a heart-wrenching scream, collapsing to the ground, tears streaming down her face. She finally awoke from her numbness, consumed by endless regret and fear. "No, It wasn't me. Senior, spare me. It really wasn't me. She begged incoherently, desperately crawling backwards on the ground, trying to get further away from me. That disheveled appearance had none of the arrogant haughtiness she had displayed before. I ignored her pleas. I just extended a finger. The power of the laws flowed at the fingertip. Pointing gently at the void, a ripple like a wave of water spread out. Immediately afterwards, a screen of light appeared before everyone. On the screen was the rewind of time. In the picture, Lin Miaoyin was anxiously searching for something in her cave dwelling. Xuea? Xuea? Where did you run off to? Soon the scene changed. At the foot of a cliff in the back mountain, she found the snow ferret. Unfortunately, it had already turned into a cold corpse. Beside the corpse, there was a second-tier demon wolf, licking the blood from the corner of its mouth. Obviously, this stupid snow ferret had run out on its own and unfortunately became the demon wolf's meal. Seeing this scene, Lin Miaoyin was first filled with grief, and then a trace of resentment flashed in her eyes. She thought of me, thought of Gu Chongqing, who is usually taciturn and regarded as useless by everyone. A perfect target for her to vent her anger and resentment. So the scene changed again. She crept to the outside of my cave dwelling, secretly leaving a tuft of snow ferret fur. Then, she returned to the sect and began that wonderful performance in the main hall. The light screen dissipated. The truth was revealed to the world, although this truth was now meaningless. Zhao Wuji and Elder Mo and the others had ashen faces. They knew they were finished. The Qingyan sect was also finished. They were not only stupid, but also blind. For a pampered female disciple, for a ridiculous lie, they had offended a terrifying existence that they didn't even have the qualifications to look up to. Was there anything more foolish, more pathetic than this? Lin Miaoyin looked at everything in the light screen, completely despairing. All her disguises, all her lies, had been stripped bare and exposed to the sun. No. No. She shook her head frantically, still wanting to argue. I didn't give her another chance to speak. I didn't even have the interest to say another word to this kind of self-seeking, death-courting ant. I looked at her and said calmly, "Didn't you want to avenge your pet? Then go down and keep it company." After saying that, I flicked my finger. There was no earth-shattering momentum. There was no world-destroying brilliance. Only a faint golden stream of light entered Lin Miaoyin's brow. Her body suddenly stiffened. Then, like a sand sculpture that had been weathered, from head to toe, it disintegrated inch by inch. First the skin, then the flesh, and finally the bones. Finally, together with her soul, it turned into the most basic particles and completely disappeared from this world, not leaving a trace behind, as if this person had never existed. Soul and body destroyed, never to be reincarnated. After doing all this, I retracted my finger, as if brushing off a speck of dust. Then, my gaze fell on Zhao Wuji and the others kneeling on the ground. When they met my gaze, their bodies trembled violently, almost fainting from fright. "Senior, spare us. We were blind. We deserve to die. Please, Senior, for the sake of the Qingyun sect's 1,000-year heritage, give us a way out." Zhao Wuji kowtowed desperately, his forehead quickly becoming bloody. "A way out?" I sneered inwardly. "When I just wanted to cultivate quietly, why did you provoke me? When I was slandered by you for no reason, did you ever think of giving me a way out? When you wanted me to wear mourning clothes for a beast and humiliate me, did you consider giving me a way out? I originally wanted to focus on the great Tao, but you insist on seeking death. The death penalty can be avoided," I said slowly. Hearing this, Zhao Wuji and the others immediately burst into a frenzy of joy, thinking that things had taken a turn for the better. But my next sentence plunged them into the Avicii hell. A living death is hard to escape. Don't you like crippling people's cultivation? Today I'll let you taste the feeling of falling from the clouds into the dust. My words, like the ice of the 9 hells, instantly froze all their hopes. Cultivation crippled, demoted to mortals. For a cultivator, this is worse than death. No. Zhao Wuji let out a desperate wail. I ignored him. I simply raised my hand slightly and then pressed down. Boom! An invisible, yet irresistible force of law, like a celestial river pouring down, instantly enveloped the entire Qingyun sect. Zhao Wuji, Elder Mo, and all the elders and disciples who participated in today's farce. Their golden cores, nascent souls, and even the Tao fruits of the spirit transformation stage shattered simultaneously in that instant. They all spat out a mouthful of blood, their auras decaying madly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Spirit transformation, nascent soul, golden core, foundation establishment. Falling all the way down, in the end, they became mortals, devoid of spiritual energy and unable to lift a finger. Wrinkles sprouted on their faces, black hair turned white. Lifespans of hundreds or thousands of years vanished in an instant, leaving only the short century of a mortal's life. This was the greatest mercy for them. I crippled the cultivation of all the main culprits. But this wasn't over yet. I raised my head, my gaze piercing through the rocks, and looked towards the main vein of Qingyun sect's mountain gate. Beneath it, there was a top-grade spiritual vein. This spiritual vein, although insignificant to me, was the foundation for a sect to stand upon. Now that the karma here is settled, this spiritual vein should also be returned to its original owner. I muttered to myself, all the spiritual veins in this world were born from heaven and earth and belonged to no one. It was only right that I took it. I reached out and, facing the direction of Qingyun sect's main peak, grasped the air. Rise! Rumble, rumble! The entire Qingyun sect, no, the mountains within 1,000 miles, began to shake violently. The earth shook and the sky cracked. Those surviving outer sect disciples, and Zhao Wuji and the others who had been demoted to mortals, watched the apocalyptic scene before them in terror. They saw a huge crack splitting the towering main peak of Qingyun sect in half. Immediately afterwards, a spiritual vein hundreds of miles long, resembling a crystal dragon, was forcibly extracted from the depths of the earth by an invisible force. That spiritual vein exuded dazzling light, and the rich spiritual energy transformed into a tangible mist, eclipsing the world. It's the mountain-protecting spiritual vein. An elder whose cultivation had been crippled cried out in despair with a mortal's hoarse voice. This was the foundation of their Qingyun sect's millennia-long inheritance. Now it was easily pulled out like a radish. The huge spiritual vein shrank rapidly in the air, eventually turning into a stream of light, which entered my palm and disappeared. As the spiritual vein was taken away, the spiritual energy of the entire Qingyun sect mountain range began to dissipate at an alarming rate. Immortal cranes wailed, and spiritual herbs withered. The beautiful and picturesque blessed land transformed into a desolate mountain range devoid of spiritual energy in just a few breaths. From now on, this place would no longer be suitable for cultivation. Qingyun sect was now a sect in name only. I clapped my hands after finishing everything, as if I had only done a trivial matter. The debts that needed to be settled had been settled. The things that needed to be taken had been taken. There was no need to linger here any longer. I took one last look at this scarred mountain gate, and those mortals who were slumped on the ground, their eyes empty, resembling the dead. There was not a ripple in my heart. Sow the cause, reap the effect. The cycle of the heavens, it should be so. I turned around, ready to leave. Just then, a trembling voice came from a corner. Say, Senior. I looked in the direction of the voice. It was a young outer sect disciple, probably only at the Qi refining stage. For today's trial, disciples of his level were not even qualified to enter the hall. So he escaped the calamity. At this moment, he was kneeling on the ground, looking at me with a gaze mixed with fear, awe, and a hint of curiosity. Senior, you, who exactly are you? He mustered all his courage and asked this question. I glanced at him. I thought about it. Me, I'm just a passerby, a cultivator who wants to ascend peacefully. After saying that, I ignored him. I took a step forward. My figure instantly became illusory. I took another step. The person had completely disappeared from the spot. Without tearing space, without earth-shattering phenomena. Just so naturally, I merged into the heavens and earth, as if I never belonged to this world. Leaving only that young disciple, kneeling in place, muttering to himself. "Oh, cultivator, who just wants to ascend." He imprinted these words, as well as everything he saw and heard today, deeply in his soul. Several days later, a tremendous earthquake occurred in the Northern Domain's cultivation world. Qingyun sect, a major sect with a 3,000-year inheritance, was destroyed overnight. The mountain-protecting spiritual vein was forcibly extracted by someone, and the entire mountain gate was turned into barren land. Sect Master Zhao Wuji, Law Enforcement Hall Elder Mo, and all core high-level members above the Golden Core stage in the sect had their cultivation crippled overnight and were reduced to mortals. As soon as this news came out, the entire Northern Domain was shaken. Countless sects and families sent people to investigate. When they saw that desolate mountain with its cut-off spiritual energy and those Qingyun sect high-level members who had turned white overnight and were like living dead, everyone gasped in horror. What kind of terrifying existence was it that could reduce a sect with considerable strength to such a miserable state overnight? They tried to ask the survivors about the truth of the matter. But those elders whose cultivation had been crippled were already heartbroken and silent about everything, only muttering to themselves all day long about words like ants and divine dragons. In the end, that outer sect disciple who had escaped the disaster told everything he knew. A foundation establishment disciple named Gu Changqing, a squeaking ferret, an absurd trial, and that supreme power that followed words with laws, controlled light and darkness, and changed the world with a single thought. This story sounded so absurd and unbelievable, but combined with Qingyun sect's tragic state, it seemed so real. From then on, a legend began to circulate in the Northern Domain's cultivation world. The legend said that an unknown ancient great power was playing in the mortal world, disguised as a mortal and living in Qingyun sect. But those blind fools of the Azure Cloud sect, for the sake of a beast, angered this divine dragon. Thus, the divine dragon, in a fit of rage, overturned the heavens and earth. And that powerful being's identity, name, and origins were unknown. It was only known that he was a passing cultivator single-mindedly focused on ascending. The name Gu Changqing also became a taboo. It constantly reminded all cultivators in the world of a truth. Do not provoke anyone who seems unremarkable, because you never know what kind of prehistoric behemoth slumbering is hidden beneath that ordinary shell. As for me, I have long since left the northern region. On another continent, I found a new spiritual vein, built a new thatched hut, and continued my monotonous, yet enjoyable cultivation life. The sun is just right. The breeze is gentle. I brew a pot of enlightenment tea, lie in my rocking chair, and sigh leisurely. Alas, I just want to ascend. Why is it so difficult?